People buy people before they buy product, which means that you have to be relatable, you have to be likable, and you have to be able to engage with them in a manner that is consistent with the outcome and results that they desire.
Welcome back. Today we're speaking with Corwyn Melette. So Corwyn is the broker owner of EXIT Realty Lowcountry Group. And so these guys here, so 14 agents, Corwyn oversees, he has 4 support staff. He does about 100 transactions a year. Average sale price is around $350,000, and he is situated in Charleston, South Carolina. So a fantastic location for investing, super affordable. So we're going to be diving in to how he got started. He actually has 7 kids as well. I grew up in a family of 9. And so, we're going to talk about how he balances, being a really strong business owner at the same time, being a father as well. As we all know, that can be a struggle sometimes. And we're going to be diving into that. Corwyn, it's really great to have you here.
Mark, my God, thank you so much for having me on today.
Right on. Well, let's go back to your origin story, Corwyn. What got you into real estate?
Oh, that's a very good one. So I always tell people my great grandfather was a carpenter. He worked, built houses and all that stuff as a kid. That's who raised me. That's who I grew up with. And in turn, I spent all of my time as a kid, summers behind him on roofs and under houses. Look at me now. You never think I did any of that. But what he also did, what I found out or realized later, was he did a little bit of property management, oversaw properties, maintained properties for people. And I tell people that's the part of the business I liked. I didn't like, hammers and nails and all that stuff. I could deal without any of that. But I love the people part of it. I love that aspect of it. Fast forward a little bit, I noticed and understood that people in this country that had true wealth had real estate. So those two things went together because obviously I wanted to have means, have wealth, provide an inheritance, if you will, for my children, my family, for generations. So in order to do that, those things had to go together. Hence, real estate.
Amazing. So how long now have you been in real estate? How many years?
Well, this year I marks 21. I'm past that mark on milestone, so I'm on my way to 22. And Mark, I tell people I'm too stupid to leave it. I love it.
Well, you figured out a good formula if you made it past a few years, because the average dropout rate is like you're in that 80 percentile of dropout. So the reality there is that you figured something out. So take us back. I know it was a little while ago, but when you first started that early struggle, do you remember like either the first deal or what it actually took to get going, starting when you had the idea of getting into real estate and starting to sell it? Maybe you could share that, that very beginning time for the entrepreneurs that are listening today.
So I'm a huge mindset person. I'm a huge believer in manifestation. You can vision it, you can make it happen. So my first deal, funny story. My first deal came from Walmart. Technically from where I'm sitting right down the street, came from Walmart. I'm in Walmart one evening with me and my mom. She's shopping. I'm just hanging out with her. I'm on the telephone talking to somebody. Happened to walk past this young lady who's pushing a cart. She was on the phone. My mother overheard her say something about wanting to buy a house. Her and her husband are trying to do it, what have you. So my mom slowed down because I was trailing behind her, slowed down and nudged me. Hey boy, she just said something about buying a house. So what? Hey, let me call you back. Hung up the phone, walked back to the lady, didn't know her from Adam. Walked up to her car and said, look, ma'am, excuse me. Walked by, overheard that you're looking to purchase a home. I'm a realtor if I can help. She got off the phone and stood there and talked to me for about 45 minutes right there in the store, telling me how, everything that's been going on with the family and trying to, make this purchase a reality. I set an appointment to meet with her and her husband, met with them about a few days later, and they became my very first transaction. We went out, they bought new construction. Actually on some of my social media, some of those early year pictures, they're there. That was the first home that for them, it was my first transaction for me, new construction, had a interesting experience in the contract phase as well. So that got me started. So my first closing though, I was in the business in 2004, wrote three actually transactions, I'm sorry, in that year, but didn't start closing transactions until the following year. Did
Mm,
about closed about that first year. I did about maybe five or so, maybe
yeah.
yeah, a little bit more, about seven to nine. And then that following year in 2006, I actually closed 23. So it
Wow.
was boom, off to the races, man. So to speak. So that was my breakout year and just kept right on going from there. So that was my early start in the business, if you will.
I love that. So, I mean, it just goes to show you got to get out there, and whether it's at a coffee shop or Walmart, you can find clients anywhere, and listen to Mama too, right? That's also a very good piece of advice that we should all follow as well. It's interesting. My mom, she's actually been really strong at recruiting business as well. It's like, hey, my son's in real. My son's in real estate. She'll send me a text, or I'll get a call from somebody. Like, I was talking to your mom, and it's cool to have those advocates around you, right?
Hmm.
And they believe in you, and it's actually good because you want them to be proud of you as well. And if you do a really good job, then they go back to mom and say, hey, listen, did a good job. And that, it's just more introductions, more people come. But that's a pretty cool first story. And you made it through that very first year, which was a struggle. So what kept you going? You had said mindset was a big thing for yourself. What got you through that early struggle period before you could start closing the higher transaction volume?
I didn't give myself a way out, Mark.
Mm,
I didn't. I'm and anybody who knows me have heard this, before, but Mark, I talk about, about commitment, and I frame it or reference it this way about, breakfast time, you got, the chicken and you got the hog. The chicken is a contributor. They lay an egg and that's their contribution to breakfast. But our hog has to be committed. They're losing an appendage or some part of them in order to provide breakfast, if you will. And I'm whole hog committed, man. That's what I do. I'm whole hog committed. So I didn't give myself a way out. I didn't say, well, look, this don't work. I'm going to do that. I didn't do any of that. Okay, we got to figure out how to make this work, which means and meant to me that every time I ran into a challenge, I had to figure out a way around it, under it, through it, or over it. Period.
mm,
And that's what I focused on. Mindset. I'm like, no, we can't do this. We got to do this. So how are we gonna figure out how to get it done? I made phone calls. I talked to people. I had a mantra. If you was in the grocery store line or any place with me for more than a certain amount of time, 3 to 5 minutes, you knew what I did. Period. Care where it was. Care where it was. If you talked to me at church for 3 to 5 minutes, boom, you knew what
yeah,
I did. So that's what my focus was. That's what I really, dove into. I just pushed it because for me, Mark, is more than just real estate. It's a ministry for me.
yeah,
That's what I do. That's
yeah.
how I serve and give back to people by empowering them through real estate. So that was my whole mantra, and that's what I still live by today.
Love that. And to me, it's like, don't be a secret agent, right? Like, let people know what you do. And if you truly believe in your service, then it's like, why wouldn't you? Because if they go with somebody else, there's a good chance they're not going to be serviced well. So you're essentially saving people. So I see what you're saying in regards to, like, that's like the mission. For the listeners out there, regardless of what industry they're in, if they're in real estate or if they're in others, and they're maybe more reserved, more quiet, like, what advice would you have for like starting up conversations or even talking about business where it's not like you're hammering them over the head? Uh, what advice or counsel would you have for the listeners out there on that?
So here's the thing. Most people want to lead Mark with talking about them. I don't care to talk about me. But what I know is that if I ask you about you, you'll tell me about you and open the door for me to tell you about me.
Mm,
So that's what my focus is in getting to know people. If I'm talking to someone, I'm going to ask them, hey, what do you do? Or what have you, or mind where you work, whatever, what kind of work you do, or whatever, something along that vein. And they're going to tell me, and it's inevitable. It's we operate, mentally, it's reciprocity. So if I
yeah.
say to you, Mark, man, how you doing today, man? I'm doing awesome, or whatever it is you might return with, and how about you? That's it's innate. We're going to do it. So you plant the seed. If you want to tell somebody what you do, don't just blurt it out because they didn't
Mm,
ask for it.
Mm,
Ask them what they did, what they do. And then in reciprocity, it's innate. They're going to ask you, and that opens the door for the dialogue and the conversation that you want to have. That
mm,
is what I focused on. That's my delivery in it.
mm. Yeah. That to me is beautiful because it's basically saying like human beings are good natured and they're going to want to ask back, and it is more rare that it would just be okay. They definitely don't want to talk to you if they don't ask it back. They just cut the conversation. But I think if they feel like a true genuine like curiosity from you, where it's not just like waiting for them to finish before you speak, you take interest on them. There's a really good book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And
Mhm.
so I'm sure you've read it, most of it. But that book though is just it talks perfectly. It's like make the other person feel important.
Mhm.
Be a great listener, encourage others to talk about themselves, and then they come back and they ask you, and then it's like boom. You got to be ready then to be confident and clear about what it is that you do. Do you have any sort of like elevator pitch or like here's what I do, or is it just more kind of natural comes out from yourself?
So, so the short answer on that, Mark, is yes, definitely got to have an elevator pitch, but it varies. One thing that I work to do, I'm not so scripted, if that makes any sense, that
Yeah,
I got to deliver my message the same way every time. I cater the message to who I'm speaking to.
yeah,
So my engagement or what have you with whoever is going to be based upon their response, their temperament or disposition in regards to me. How are you responding to me? Are you walls up? Or are you okay, what is this? Or are you saying, okay, well, hey, you're friendly. My delivery of that is going to be catered to that. So I do have obviously the points that I like to get in. I like to start with, how I grew up. I didn't grow up in the business. I didn't come from means wealth or any of that, any of those things. I came from, hey, hammer and nails,
mm,
shingles, floor joists. You see what I'm saying?
yeah,
That's what I came from paint and 2x4s. So if I can talk to someone from that position, then that's usually a place where most people can connect, because a lot of people have painted their houses themselves or a house themselves. So that's the connection, and allows me to bring it through and evolve it into the conversation
yeah,
that gets me to, hey, what can I do for you?
yeah. Love it. So good. What you've been, over the last 20 years, you've built up a name and you have a team and you're doing like large transaction volume. What regular habits, or we'll just say productivity hacks, do you do on a regular basis that provides big results for you?
So the short version is I really spend time with my whales. I'm responsive to them. And
Can
I
you
forgot.
elaborate on that? What you mean by that, by whales?
So whales are those people that make those big impacts and splashes in your business.
Mm,
I got it from a book some years ago. Forgot what the title was, so please forgive me. But when you see a whale, humpback whale come up out of the water, it comes up and then lays over and splash. There's this immense, disposition of water. It's everywhere, everywhere. And I focus on being responsive and engaging with those people that have made those large impacts in my business. And I have a few large whales, and those whales connect me to other people that in turn, some of them become whales as well, which is so amazing. I do a lot of work for, local municipalities, nonprofits, things of that nature, which is to be transparent, is not the work that everybody else wants to do,
mm,
but I enjoy doing it because I enjoy the mission. The mission is, again, is ministry for me. So those people connect me to other people who in turn are doing the same thing. So one person that I was connected to about 14 or so years ago has now connected me to several others that are all doing the same thing.
hmm,
And they're each respectively, when they're dropping business, they're dropping large scale opportunities. I just finished a 20 unit development that we were marketing. um just finished, 20 townhomes, and I have another 14 listed, another 10 to 15 that's coming elsewhere. And these are, again, individual opportunities that essentially I can source back to my first engagement and involvement when I first started working in the nonprofit realm and world. So those whales, big, huge impacts in your business.
It's so good. And, there's that Pareto principle, focus. Well, if you basically you get 80% of the results from 20% of your clients, right? So we'll call them whales, or maybe if it's even focus on the 10% that give you, we'll call it like 60% of your business. Like it actually that high leverage point is really important. Uh, Love that because it's easy to just start spreading your focus, but really you only have so much time in the day, right? How do you find the whales?
You've heard this adage before. If you do, what it is you love, you'll never work a day in your life. So that's it's commonality. The people that, if you are an agent who wants to focus on luxury, right? Because I have this conversation often with agents, that are around me or close, otherwise. We want to focus on luxury, which is wonderful. No issue. I mean, you got to ingrain yourself in that. And you're found in that space, which means that you are a reflection of what your client base, if you will, is. In turn, if you want to work in another arena or realm, same thing. You have to ingrain yourself in that. And when you've done that, what happens is you don't necessarily have to find the clients find you. They seek you out. Why? Because you're kindred. You're either about the mission or whatever it is that they're about, or you otherwise are relatable. People buy people, Mark, before they buy product. It doesn't matter what you're selling. If people don't buy you, they'll never do business with you, which means that you have to be relatable, you have to be likable, and you have to be able to engage with them in a manner that is consistent with the outcome and results that they desire. People buy people before they buy product.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so well said. Yeah, and if they like you and trust you and they feel you're like them and that you truly understand them, you're going to get to the trust part of the relationship a lot faster as well. So I love that. I mean, you had said something here as well that you are a reflection of what your client base is, and so go to where your client base is and be found there. The
Hmm.
smart. It's simple yet smart. I think it's easy not to do that because it's all about lead generation and get a bunch of leads, but it's like, okay, where are the barrels of fish, right? Go to the barrels of fish that you want to service that you are relatable to, and that'll give you a competitive advantage, right? Really good insight. So, as a real estate agent broker, what would you say is like your biggest stressor when it comes to the business?
Oh man, look here. Mark, I literally was having this conversation earlier. In the brokerage, if you will, I'm the only person that signs the front of the check where everybody else signs the back, if that makes sense. And that right there is single most it. Everyone who signs the back usually got something to say in regards to who signs the front, if that makes sense. So there's always, the challenges of, okay, look, this is what we're trying to do, this is where we're going. Okay, well, I don't like that. Well, okay, but I get that, I understand that, but I signed the front of the check, you signed the back. So I need you to understand that this change is not to get me to sign the back of the check. It's so that I can sign more on the front and you can sign more on the back. And just because you don't like it doesn't change that narrative. While I love to be able to sign the back of the check, I'm pretty sure you don't want to have to be responsible for signing the front.
Hmm.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. It does. It's putting it in perspective that you are doing it for creating more checks for people and helping more people at the end of the day. And that I guess that you're asking for trust for you towards you to that you're coming from you want the best for for the organization and for growth of the organization as well, right? So I totally get it.
Well, let me add in this, because you talk about trust. As a broker or a business owner, period, whoever, when you hire someone trusting that they're going to do and perform the job that you, or role or whatever, fill whatever role, but trusting that. And in turn, they should have a trust in you, because okay, they're expecting to be compensated for whatever it is they're doing, right? Unfortunately, while that should be, and I literally sent an email out a couple of years ago, just to kind of reiterate that the agent broker relationship is one of trust. It's supposed to be mutual, because it's mutually beneficial. If I'm your broker, I help you build your business, you perform in your business, you make money, I make money, right? However, unfortunately, sometimes people, they get away from, or they become distrustful. Simple things cause this. Things such as, well, why did you put that policy in place? Well, why are we doing this? And then they begin to back up, where when they came in, well, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. Okay, I see where you're trying to help me with my business. But when you change something because of anything, and right now we've had a lot of change in the industry, right? So obviously we're having to change and put new policies and process procedures in place to make sure that we're adhering to that. Well, we weren't doing that before. Well, we got to do that now because of all of this. Those changes make any change makes people uncomfortable, but again, it's a mutual trust beneficial relationship. And if you don't have that trust, then you need to go somewhere else to make sure that you keep relationships that are trust mutually beneficial.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you start learning little tricks along the way, right? When you start making changes. It's interesting. I found for me, it was like if I can clearly communicate why something was being changed and how it's what's in it for them, and I could speak to that versus like this is what's best for the company. It's like here's what's best and it for you, and if I could clearly communicate that, that was really key. But one step further than that, I realized that if I could have a conversation with the key, we'll call them the influencers in the company, and we got them on board before we did the group announcement. We say, hey, listen, you know, Sally or John or whoever, right? You say, hey, John and Sally, we're looking to do this. Here's why we're doing it. Want to get your insights on that. We're looking to make a decision. They give the insights. Okay, great. And we asked for their buy-in before with the announcing to the group. And by doing that, it was interesting because a lot of the people will go to those key influencers after and they're like, well, what do you think? And if we already have their buy-in, then it made that transition a lot easier than if we just came down with the hammer. So 100%, there's a lot of hard decisions you need to make. And a lot of times it doesn't feel good for the team members, but you start to kind of introduce some of these key tactics and key learnings. It seems to kind of make it for a little less bumpy of a ride.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So what do you think makes a great leader, Corwyn? What do you think it is that, why do people come and work for you? There's leadership ability that you have. What separates you from kind of the average person out there that you think why people gravitate towards you from a leadership standpoint?
So I'm gonna start, Mark, to answer that with how I define leadership. So I define leadership as stepping forward when others step back.
Hmm.
Um, so that is something that um, I believe consistently that I work to do. If something needs to be done, then let's get it done. Now, do I have to be the person that does it? No. But if others are not stepping up to it, then I am going to step forward. So with my agents, I'm very I'm as accessible and available as they need me to be. I focus on that. I tell them all the time. I said, look, you call me. If I see that I missed your call, I'm calling you. If I don't or can't answer at that time, I'm gonna call you back as soon as possible. Usually I'm not gonna listen to a voicemail. I'm just gonna go ahead and call you back because that you're calling, that means that you're trying to do something in your business, and that is important to me. So much so that I sacrifice or put aside my own business to help my agents. I go on appointments. I take them on appointments with me so they can see what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, so they can work to deliver the results they want to deliver as a and step as use me as a stepping stone. So maybe what I said or how I did it, maybe that's not how it works better or best for you, but you can take what I demonstrated,
Mm.
tweak it a little bit, and turn it into your own, if you will. So those are the things that I focus on, because at the end of the day, what an agent wants to feel is supported. They
Yeah.
know if they call me, I'm going to call them back. They're not going to have to chase behind me to, get an answer to something. They know that I'm going to get back to them as quickly as I can, regardless whether it's 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, or if it's 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah. And I think that that applies to every single organization. Everybody wants to be supported 100%. And it's interesting. They did a study, and I believe it was a Google study that did, and they said that the number one reason why people leave companies is because they left the manager. Ultimately, it was the manager. And so it's like it comes down to that, that they didn't feel supported by their who they were directly reporting to. Uh, and I love the breakdown of leadership, the definition. I've never really kind of heard it that way before. Stepping forward when others step back. That's smart. It really
Mm.
is, because there's a courage element to that, right? When others are scared to, it's like the leader, it's like ultimately you got to take the reins and, drive that horse. You can't be pointing the finger and saying, no, you go do it. I don't want to do it. If it's like a really hard thing, they need to be able to see that you can do it. And maybe ultimately it comes down to you've been doing it for a number of years, and then you train your other people to go up and do that thing. It doesn't mean that you need to do everything, but ultimately if the company needs you to do something, you got to be willing to have the courage to do it, and not like get weak at that point, because everybody sees that. And if you start doing that too regular, eventually you lose we'll say the privilege of leading the company. I think.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. All right. How about any advice for a new business owner? They're starting up a business. What's some generic overall good advice that you have for anybody starting up?
Don't be afraid of what you don't know. Focus on learning what you need. Oftentimes, I can remember several times over the years of having new agents or agents kind of get into the business, and they just focus on education, 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 education. And when a situation presents itself, they know so much that they don't know what to do. Oftentimes, you know, true a business owner successfully, it's not in the textbook. It's not. There's certain things that's in a book somewhere or another, and mostly it's about just either mindset or courage. And sometimes courage is just stupidity without restraint. Okay. And just moving forward, just okay, well, look, this I'm gonna move the needle. I just want to keep pushing forward, and eventually you find your breakthrough. But sometimes we just try to focus on cramming so much information in that when it is time to perform, we have no idea what we're supposed to do because we know too much.
Mm.
Focus on getting to what it is you need. First things first, I need to know how to get a customer or client or whatever your business is. How am I going to do that? Yeah, you got to have infrastructure and some of the things set up. Yes. So yes, you got to have, if you operate in a store, you got to have location, you got to have availability and accessibility to inventory. You got to have a point of sale system, POS. You got to have all of that, right? On the other side, though, then it becomes your customer. And you should have thought about who you was looking to serve before you even got to the building, got to the inventory, got to the point of sale system. You should have already figured out who is my customer, who's my potential client. Now, once you got all those things in place, how do I get that person in the door? That that's what
Mm.
you need to know first. Secondly, you need to know how to sell them. So if you focus on it incrementally versus trying to attack the whole thing at one time, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. We've heard that over and over and over again. Yet and still, I cannot tell you how many times over the years I've seen people put that whole elephant on the plate at one time.
Yeah, and then overwhelm happens, right? That's how they tame a lion. The lion tamers have a stool with a four-legged stool, and it holds it up to the lion, and the lion gets docile, right? Because it's got four things attacking, doesn't know which one to go after. So that's what happens. I see it all the time, right? And even I know, like for even for myself, there's like just so much going on, and I realize, oh, I'm like starting to pull back when I should be attacking. And so that's where through the years I've kind of figured out it's like one thing for a long period of time, if you can get into kind of that state of flow and go
Mm-hmm.
deep and shut
Mm-hmm.
everything off, shut your phone off, shut your email, texts, bings, all the rest of it, shut it all down, one
Mm-hmm.
thing out of a time.
Mm-hmm.
You can become like superhuman in regards to what you get done. But when you're constantly doing, like, the whole idea of multitasking has been proven that you can't do it. So I think that's so good. You eat an elephant one bite at a time, and know who your customer is and know how to get them as well. I think that's like business 101. Very smart.
Mm-hmm.
So, Corin, let's talk a little bit about the Charleston, South Carolina market. So that's where you sell. We have assets there as well. We invest in multifamily in that market. It's one of our kind of top three that we really love. Why should somebody move to Charleston? Like, why do you have such large population growth that's happening there, and why is Charleston so attractive to move to?
So, pardon the reference to the movie, but Charleston literally is the perfect storm. We have industry, we have technology, we have tourism, we have import export, we have schools, we have everything. Retirement, I mean, just scenery, all everything, and that is what makes Charleston extremely unique. We have greater affordability than most markets. I did this thing, an exercise, Mark, maybe a couple 2 3 years ago. Kind of in the middle towards the tail end of COVID, right? So I did this exercise where I pulled, all the flights, direct flights from Charleston, right? Every city, and I did a comparison for every city that had a direct flight from Charleston, what the median income was and what the median home price was. Out of all those cities, I forgot the exact number, but it was a lot of cities. Out of all those cities, Charleston was from quote unquote most affordable or lowest number to highest number. Charleston was number two, not from the top, but from the bottom. There was only one city that had a lower median home price than Charleston. I forgot where that was. Every other city higher, substantially higher in a lot of cases. So that immediately demonstrated to me affordability. And during COVID, as people were, okay, well, I want to live, I'm working remote, I can live where I want to live. That also gave an option for people to reside in a market such as Charleston with culture, with beaches, with lots of activity, with history, with
Mm,
all those things that they weren't able to live in before affordably. And we saw a number of people relocating here from Chicago, from New York, New Jersey area, from California. They were, New Orleans, people just coming in, coming in, coming in, coming in, coming in. And yet and still, even with all that, we still are more affordable than, if you will,
mm,
as far as median price, than all those markets. It's mind blowing to me. So we
yeah.
have the perfect storm. School, people buy property here for the children to come to school. The ports got business flowing, commerce. BMW cars come in and out of our ports. It's
Mm,
impressive, man. It's
yeah.
like everything.
Yeah, some great paying jobs as well. And, it's interesting when everybody was flocking down to Florida, which is still one of our markets, still a strong market, but there's a trend now that people are moving, they call it like halfback. And so they're moving down, they move down to Florida and they're like, oh, it's pretty hot in summertime down here. I'm going to, move up a little bit further north. And, South Carolina, Charleston is actually one of those markets. Um, It's interesting when we were first looking and identifying the markets that we wanted to invest in. Charleston was one of the spots, and there was this property that came up. It was off market. It was 144 units there, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to. So we went and looked at the property, and I booked a couple extra days, and I went and did a tour, a guided tour in Charleston, and I walked onto the bus, and I'm like the 42-year-old guy, and they were all seniors on the bus, and I walked in on my own. I looked, I'm like, hey, it's everybody, and they're like kind of looking at me like I'm some weirdo. And I was at the front seat, and I was asking the tour guide all about Charleston. She's filling me in all about like what's going on in the city. I'm like, oh, good, taking notes. And then I went to the
The
markets,
market.
the market there, and I had the best biscuit with fried chicken and honey. I don't know, like it was just phenomenal. I'm like sitting there on my own eating this biscuit, fried chicken there. I'm like, this place, Charleston, is amazing, right? And I just think like there is a lot of history there,
Mhm,
and there's a lot of really good things that's happening.
mhm.
And I think like people ask like why, like what are the things that a real estate market has before it booms, and like Charleston like checks a lot of those boxes. So like we're really encouraged about that market and moving forward. I think that if anybody's looking for affordability, lifestyle, weather, even great paying jobs as well, it's kind of it's I it's one of those it's a strong market right now where definitely check it out. If you're listening to the podcast, I think it's definitely a very cool city, and it's growing. It's only going to get better moving forward, I think.
It is. We have rapid transit bus line that's going in. They've already allocated the median for it. We'll start seeing construction on that relatively soon. Super stops and stuff already kind of set up as well. So that's exciting. That's going to help people move through, a lot easier. But I tell people when people talk about pricing and all that stuff, Charleston obviously is a coastal city, and we got development, figured out, if you will, Charleston and West. But we can't build on the east side of Charleston. You can't build in the ocean. We ain't figured it out yet, right? So that limits the amount of space that we have to develop, which is why we're so focused and uber focused, if you will, on making sure that we develop it right. We have some amazing leaders within our municipalities, our cities, in towns that really work in concert together, other organizations that kind of bridge the gap to make sure that we are creating an environment, a region, if you will, because Charleston really is more than a city, but creating a region that is super beneficial to the residents, that
Mm,
it works for everyone.
yeah.
And you can't make everybody happy,
Hmm.
but you can create an ecosystem, if you will, that works for everybody.
Yeah, and Charleston's doing a good job at preserving its history, and preserving kind of the we'll call it like that old town feel. Like if you drive downtown Charleston near the ocean, it's like it's very pretty down there. Definitely check it out if you want to go for a tour guide, or you can go on maybe the same bus I went on as well. And it was good. I learned a lot on that as well. How about real estate investing? So what advice would you have for the listeners when it comes down to investing in real estate? Like why invest in real estate versus say investing in stocks, for example?
Um, the reality is that, real estate is a single commodity that no matter what, nobody can create more of. No matter what, we have no ability to create more land per se. The earth is the size of the earth. What God gave us is what we got. And in turn, that means there is a limitation on it. And we should understand that that limitation creates an opportunity. In real estate school, I learned, I also, teach, I'm a licensed instructor as well. But we teach that there's an abundance, but there's a scarcity. You
Mm,
have you have an abundance, there is an abundance of land that is not occupied, but there's a scarcity oftentimes in arenas and places where people want to be. So in an area like Charleston, there is a degree of scarcity, which means that when you figure out either locate a property and or figure out how to develop a property in our region, you're going to find yourself on the fruitful side because there is a scarcity yet and still of housing within our market.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense as well. And so finding those pockets, what would you say would be like? Here are the main things when you look at a real estate deal to invest. Are there any like main kind of golden rules or things that you look for where it's like, wow, that's a great deal. I'm going to go after it.
So first thing is, we always talk about location, in the business. I mean, that's the mantra: location, location, location. But when you're looking at investing, you want to be located in an area like, prime example, as there's a property that I just had a client that closed on. It is a duplex located in North Charleston. They're gonna rehab it, rent it and then resell it. They're not gonna keep it. They're interested in the flip, not in in the long term. So the next investor will benefit from the long term cash flow. That property is located directly, if you will, between a super stop, if you will, for the new transit line and the naval base that is receiving a complete a complete retro. I mean, they're going through and there's new stuff going in. There's a tremendous amount of development, redevelopment is going on there. So that particular corridor is going to essentially get a facelift. Other properties are going to be purchased. They're going to be renovated. Some people have bought. They're holding because they're waiting for the redevelopment on the naval base to be completed. There's road construction that's going on all in that corridor. So they're right there, if you will, in that pocket where everything is changing, which means that when everything is changed, everything is value is going to be significantly higher. So focusing on where growth and development are coming to. Some of my investors, they go a little bit further out and they just want to okay, we're going to keep it, we're going to hold it, so we're going to wait until the development gets to us. But there are others that, I want to be right here in the middle of it, because while some people are speculating, I know and understand that when this comes through,
Mm,
it's going to change and re-centralize this entire area.
yeah.
When you talk about moving people from place to place within our region, within our city, when you have a location that essentially becomes a hub, everything around it grows because now you need additional resource, you need infrastructure, you need stores, you need more retail. Maybe there's position for office, maybe there's a position for entertainment. So a lot of things are going on. All that's also in a corridor, because we have a similar corridor in North Charleston, off of Montague, that went through a complete revitalization probably about 10 years or so ago. And there's restaurant, bars, and stores, and office, and all this stuff that's there. And this particular corridor that we're talking about is poised for the same thing: a complete redevelopment of essentially a main thoroughfare, main street, if you will, that's going to get new bars, new restaurants, new stores, and property values are going to skyrocket because of it.
So smart. Yeah, we call it like the paths of progress. And if you can get a good broker like Corwyn here to be able to help guide you, it's like, hey, where's the city growing? It's like, okay, the city is growing here, here, and here. Here's all the data. Here are the contacts. Like, and that's where I think having good counsel is such a good tip. But when it comes to like buying real estate, having like a really good broker that knows all the ins and outs, and it's like, they you just which way the city is growing. It's like if you can buy not one that's going to turn like 10 years down the road, but what's already starting to happen. If you can buy it at that, then it's not such a risk. I see sometimes people buy into an area way too soon and they're waiting for too long. And just the overall investment's not strong. You want to start, you want to buy in where you start to see the building actually happening, not just they're talking about it, right? Because things can
Mhm.
change. New leader comes in and all of a sudden they kibosh the whole thing, and now you've invested in a location. And that's where having good advice from somebody like you, I think, is so important.
Appreciate that.
All right. So let's talk. We got rapid fire. So we got 3 questions here, and we're going to wrap up. So you ready for the rapid fire here,
Yes, sir.
Corwyn?
Yes, sir. Let's go.
Awesome. All right. So first one, I'm a big reader, love reading books. What's your favorite book? The book that's made the biggest impact in your career?
Man, look here. That's very good. That's a very interesting one, and it probably changes fairly often. I've read Think Like a Success a few times from Steve Harvey. um I'm a big and I guess we call it ragged to riches, but basically, overcoming whatever it is, and understanding, how to grow from that. So I watch a lot of motivational stuff. I've also really enjoyed, and I'll give you two, Mark, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but
please. I love it.
the 10x rule, Grant
Yeah.
Cardone.
Yeah.
That dude, man, oh man, I love it, I love it. If you're not first, you're last. I mean, it's but that's what I would leave you with.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. Second question, 3 words that best describe you.
Willing to help.
Okay. Okay. Right on. Perfect. And final question, what final advice would you have for the entrepreneurs that are out there? Maybe whether they're thinking about getting into the business or into any sort of business for that matter, or they're in business right now and they're just looking to take their business to the next level. What advice would you have for them?
I'll go back to something I said earlier. Be whole hog committed. If you're looking to start a business, be fully committed. I mean, to the point that you're willing to give up something for
Mm, yeah, that's great. Burn the ships, right?
it.
So love it, Corwyn. This has been such a pleasure. You're a beautiful man, and of course, I think when it comes down to real estate, in order to be successful long term, like and to have your success, I think having a genuine love of people is at the core of that, and you definitely have that in spades. So, for the listeners, whether they are looking to move into Charleston, or maybe they know somebody from Charleston, or they have any questions about that and they want to reach out and connect, what's the best way they can do that?
I'm easy peasy. I'm a big guy. It's hard to miss me. You can call me 843-364-3095. That is my mobile. If you don't get me, please leave a message, and/or send a text, and we'll definitely get back to you ASAP.
Amazing. Corwyn, really appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks again.
Mark, my guy, thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure.
Right on. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed this show, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And just remember, guys, that the best way to grow your wealth is to build your business and invest in real estate. I love you guys.